Hi everyone, I'm Mr. Thomas from Pensacola State College Library and Kids College. Today we'll be reading This Moose Belongs to Me, and then we're going to make some chromatography flowers. Before we get started, now's a good time for a parent or caregiver to grab a couple things. You'll need some white coffee filters, a pair of scissors, some washable markers, some cups, and some water. And now let's read our story. This Moose Belongs to Me by Oliver Jeffers. Wilfred owned a moose. He hadn't always owned a moose. The moose came to him a while ago, and he just knew, that it was meant to be his. He thought he would name him Marcel. He began following Marcel, explaining the rules of how to be a good pet. Much of the time, it seemed as though the moose wasn't listening, but Wilfred knew he was, mostly because he followed Rule 4 very well. Not making too much noise while Wilfred plays his record collection. Sometimes, the moose wasn't a very good pet. He generally ignored Rule 7, going whichever way Wilfred wants to go. The moose had a very good sense of direction, and Wilfred did not. And because the moose was particularly poor on Rule 7, Section B, maintaining a certain proximity to home, Wilfred quickly learned to bring some string along on their outings so he could find his way back again. Sometimes the moose was an excellent pet. He had no trouble with Rule 11, providing shelter from rain, or Rule 16, knocking down things that are out of Wilfred's reach. One day, as Wilfred discussed their plans for the coming year on a particularly long walk, he made a terrible discovery. Someone else thought she owned the moose. "Rodrigo, you're back!" Wilfred was dumbstruck. This moose was Marcel, not Rodrigo. The old lady was mistaken, and Wilfred thought it only proper that he correct her. "This moose belongs to me," he explained. And to prove it, he called Marcel. "Heel!" But the moose did not respond. He seemed more interested in the old lady. "Good, Rodrigo." "Fine!" Embarrassed and enraged, Wilfred rushed off for home. But in his haste, and miles from anywhere, he tripped over a string and got tangled up. And there he lay. Wilfred was beginning to get a little bit worried. It was getting late, and the monsters would be out soon. He had just ruled out the last of his options when along came the moose and performed Rule 37 brilliantly, rescuing your owner from perilous situations. All was forgiven, and perhaps, Wilfred admitted, he never really owned the moose anyway. With that in mind, he and the moose reached a compromise. The moose would agree to all of Wilfred's rules, whenever it suited him. Hi everyone, welcome back. Hope you enjoyed today's story. So, today we're going to be making chromatography flowers. This is a fun, little bit of a longer craft, but this is a great art project that you can do a lot of experimentation with. It's fun to just make these. You can make them with relatively just things that you're gonna have laying around the house as well. Maybe you can kind of reuse some of the things that we used in some other crafts, but we're gonna have a lot of fun making these. So the first thing that you're gonna need, let's talk about our supplies. You're gonna need some white coffee filters. I'm using some mini ones because I have a mini coffee filter or a mini coffee maker here at the library. But certainly if you've got larger ones, those are gonna work pretty well and probably a lot better. You're gonna have a lot more real estate to work with whenever you make your flowers. You're also gonna need some cups. I'm using some cups that are pretty tall, but if you have some shorter ones, maybe half the size of this, that's gonna work really well. You're gonna need some water. I've got a pair of scissors. You'll definitely want something like a mat or a sheet of paper that you can work with. We are drawing onto our coffee filters, so it will kind of bleed bleed through, and these are pretty thin, and the markers that we're using will definitely bleed through onto any wood or any table that you might be working on. So definitely make sure that you have a sheet of paper or a tarp or something that you can draw on top of. Obviously, you'll need some markers, and I've got some tape and some straws that I'm going to attach everything to, and a pair of scissors that we can cut out some things later. First, let's talk about the markers that we're going to be using. You're going to want to make sure that you use something that is either washable or something that isn't as thick as, say, a Sharpie. I tried with a bunch of different markers. I saw that Crayola washable markers worked pretty well, but the best ones that I found were these Mr. Sketch scented. And the fun thing about the scented ones is that then your flowers will have a scent or a smell afterwards. Now, chromatography is essentially the easiest way to kind of describe it is just a separation of two things. In particular, it's a separation of colors or chemicals within a substance. So you'll notice that what I used for this one, I used a black marker and I was able to kind of pull out some colors and was able to stretch it out and kind of essentially pull that color apart. So you'll notice that there's a couple different colors within this black one, and we'll get to see some other examples in just a moment. But let's kind of show you what to do. So first, we have a cup, and I've got a bunch of different cups here so I can set up 2 of them. And I can show you exactly how much water you want to put in each cup. You need very little water for this. Depending on the size of your coffee filter, you'll have to use maybe a touch more, but really the less water you use, the better. Because you can always cut down your filter. If you notice that you need a little bit more water, just add it very sparingly for all of this. So the first thing that you're gonna do is have your empty cup, and the amount of water that I'm putting in it is about that much. You just want to cover the bottom of the cup. I need just a touch more. And that's about all I need. Really, you just want to make sure that the bottom is entirely covered. This one has a weird little lip at the bottom, but this one will work just okay. I'm gonna add just a little bit more, but again, this is something that you can experiment. That might be a touch too much, and really, you really just want it to cover the bottom of it. You don't want to dip your full coffee filter inside of it. You just want enough so that it can start to soak that up. This one has just about the perfect amount. I used this prior, and it's gonna work out pretty well, I think. Now let's put those to the side, but now we're gonna take our coffee filters, and this is where we're going to draw on them. And all you need to do with it is to draw a circle. Now there are a couple things that you can do here, and you can see a bunch of different designs that I kind of worked with earlier. I'm just gonna take this color, and I'm going to draw a big circle. You don't want to draw it in the middle because a coffee filter kind of pops up. I like to just draw around that popped up part. Really, you want to make sure that the center is absolutely clear whenever you're working with this, but make sure that whenever you do this, you kind of draw around before you get to the ripply part around the edge. I'm gonna put a whole bunch on this. And you know, you can add a lot to it, you can add a little bit. Again, experiment with it. I'll show you a couple different examples for it. This one's, I'm using it, where did my cap go? Who knows where it went? It probably rolled off the table. I have no idea where it went. It's on the end of this. I'm an expert. Anyway, I'm using a lot of ink for this one, but you can always be pretty sparing with it. I'm using that Mr. Sketch for this one. I think these are the best ones to use. They're a little bit more expensive than just your Crayola markers, but I think it's worth it because they also have the little scent for it. And they last a long time apparently. I've been using these for quite a while. I've made a bunch of these, and we're gonna show you some examples in just a moment. So I've drawn a lot for that one, but for this one, I'm only gonna do a small circle for it. I'm gonna just do one quick circle for it, and that's all I'm gonna put for that one. So now that we've done that, this is the part where you're going to take your filter and you're going to fold it in half. And you'll notice that, yeah, we started getting some of those marks. I did use this sheet of paper earlier, but these marks are from these 2 filters. So it will bleed through. Make sure that you do have your table covered up for that. You're just gonna fold it in half and then fold it in half again. And you're gonna start to notice that we've got this empty space down here at the bottom. That's gonna be the funnel that's gonna start to pull the water up. Now let's fold that one more time. And I think that's enough to kind of work with this. So now you've kind of got this piece of a pie shape. And now that we've got this, I'm actually going to unfurl it just a little bit. And that way we are able to kind of have a cone for this now. And that's gonna help kind of stick to the sides of our cup, and it's going to be able to not dip all the way down into it and just pull up from that cone. The big thing that you want to make sure is that the marker doesn't get submerged in the water. So that's why you only have a little bit of water at the bottom of your cup. And you want to make sure that this tip is going to be directly in that, and just the little end piece is going to be in there. So I'm going to unfurl that just one more time. So we kind of got our cone shape for this. And I'm going to dip this into our water. And again, you just want the tip to kind of touch into the water. You don't want any other part. Now what's going to happen is this is going to start to soak up all that water, and it's going to start to pull all the way up to the very top of the filter. It's going to try to soak all the water up into that. Now what's going to happen is that it's also going to pull that ink from the marker. Start to pull that ink, and you'll notice that it's going to, I'm going to show you in just a second, promise I'm getting there. It's going to pull all that ink up to the very brim, up to the top of the filter as well. Let's do it one more in this one. So again, let's fold this in half. And this has a lot of it. I'm going to try to show you at the end what happened with this. Let's fold that. That's 2, and that's a 3rd time. And again, we still got this blank part down here at the bottom. Then we have our line of ink, and then we have a blank top up at the top. So let's go ahead and make that funnel kind of shape again. That's pretty good. And then we will stick that into our cup. And again, just a little end piece, you want that to stick at the bottom. Cool. Now you're going to wait. This is the toughest part about this craft. It will take somewhere between 10 to 30 minutes for all the water to drain up to the top and for it to filter out. Now I will try to show you some after shots of what these look like whenever they're finished up, but let's take a look. But while these are working and doing their thing, and you might even get to see them kind of pulling up, let's actually show you what our filters will look like when they're done. So these are using Crayola markers, and you'll notice that they've got kind of these zigzag patterns at the end. This was with the black, red, and that was with the yellow. You'll notice that it kind of pulled that color out and brought it towards the edges. This was with a Crayola marker, but let me show you what happened when you use a Mr. Sketch. These are really good. I think this one's probably my favorite one. It looks super great, and it really pulls, and it really sticks to the paper as well. It's a little bit of a thicker ink, and it doesn't wash away as easily. So do be prepared for that. A washable marker, this one's an ultra clean washable. That's probably the issue that I had with these. But with these, they pulled it out pretty well. This one, I used 2 different colors, and I kind of staggered the, kind of did a cross pattern with that. And this one, I just did a whole bunch of it. And this one only had 1 circle for it. So this was 1 circle. This was using just as much as I used on this one prior. And you will notice that it is starting to pull that ink up towards the top. Give it some time, kind of wait on it. You might even want to see how long, you can test a couple different kinds. Maybe you want a very small flower, because now we're going to trim this down and make an actual flower from this. So what you can do with these now is you can do the same thing. You can make these folds again. They will need to sit and dry out for a little while. I would say it only takes about 5 minutes for these to dry. Put them on a towel, maybe leave them near where the air conditioner is, put a fan on them. They'll dry off a lot faster too. So what I'm doing here is I'm folding them down, because when you pull them out, they're obviously going to be wet. Just lay them out, the coffee filters dry out pretty quickly. So I folded this over again, and I've kind of got this edge, and I'm going to cut off that part that didn't get any ink on it. I'm going to also kind of give it a rounded edge to make it look like a flower petal. So I've cut that off now, and now you'll notice that once I heart and you pull it out, it has some petals for it now. So it looks a lot more like a flower. You can certainly trim a lot more if you wanted to, and in fact, I'm going to trim off all that edge that doesn't have any ink. Probably a little lopsided, but it's okay. Flowers are still pretty even if they're lopsided. So let's cut that one all the way down. And if you had a giant coffee filter, it's going to look even better, because it's going to draw all that color out of it too. So let's unfurl this. And that is kind of what it's going to become. Now it's the part where you can actually kind of form it into more of a flower. Again, we're going to kind of fold it up, and you're just going to take that bottom part here and just kind of give it just kind of start to crimp that up and give it a little bit of a twist. And now you've got a nice little flower that you're kind of working with. This is where you can take a piece of tape. I'm going to take a piece of my clear tape here, tear that off, and I'm going to tape this so it holds its shape. Tape that up. Tape that all the way around. And let's go ahead and make the other 2 as well. So again, fold that up. And this one was my multicolor one. See if you can put a bunch of different colors on there. See if you use something like a black marker, it's actually going to pull a lot more colors out. because black is the, I think it's all colors, right? Or the absence of color? No, it's all colors, whereas white is the absence of color. But now we've kind of got this shape. That's looking pretty cool. Now let's fold that up and make a flower out of this one too. Kind of going for a Clemson theme here. Wasn't planning on that, but that's kind of what we have here. You know, look at some complementary colors that you can kind of pull off of and that you can pull from here. So now you've got my battery died, so now we're gonna be really quick here. You know, now you can add them into a straw and you can start making a bouquet out of these. Let's show you what these would look like after just a couple minutes. These have only been in the water for about 4 or 5 minutes at this point, but that's what's gonna happen to them. It starts to draw all that color out and kind of pulls it out towards the ends. Let's take a look at one more. Yeah, see, that's pretty cool. It starts to pull all this color out and starts to pull off towards the edge. Cool, so there are your chromatography flowers. Thank you so much for watching. We hope you enjoyed today's story and craft.